The utterances of Tyquendo Tracey are libelous and defamatory. I have served my country for over 22 years at the national level, and I've been a public servant for 33 years working with youngsters. At no time did I have any form of altercation with Tyquendo Tracey. This is a very serious matter. So I was approached by Spencer Darlington and his cameraman about allegations being made about me around the warm-up area. I told him that I was not going to have that discussion because I'm not sure what Tyquendo Tracey is talking about. In having the conversation, which was not on camera, I saw Tyquendo Tracey jumped in front of me with his arms folded in a very intimidatory fashion. And I said, what is happening here? I then asked him to excuse himself from this space. And he stood up and he looked at me. I then asked the cameraman and Spencer Darlington to step aside so we could continue with the conversation. I think he went back to a group that was under a tree of Jamaican athletes, and I called one of the managers to say to him that I am very uncomfortable with Tyquendo Tracey being in the warm-up area, and I do not want any disharmony amongst the athletes because they are going to run in a couple of minutes. And I'm going to ask him to remove Tyquendo Tracey from this space, and if he refuses, to take away his accreditation and send him back to the hotel. That was my response in relation to that situation. I was also there with the doctor of the team, and he said to me that he was surprised because when the media came, he stepped aside so I could have the conversation, and then Tyquendo Tracey just jumped in front of me, less than half a meter, staring me down with his arms folded.
Is there, in terms of a thing of bias, because Tyquendo Tracey is claiming that your athletes are being entered into the relay? There was a comment under his post by Warren Weir that said that a situation happened to him previous years ago when he was a part of some national teams. I don't know which year, but he made such a comment. How can you?
It is very unfortunate, because to the contrary, the athletes I coach have suffered. In 2015, Rashid Dwyer was the fastest athlete. 1980 at the Pan Am Games. Came fourth at the trials. 3 other athletes were there that did not show form, apart from Usain Bolt. And he was not. I was the head coach. He was not put on the team. He also ran a blinding leg on the 4x1 and was not placed in the final. 2 years ago at the Olympics, he was in the Olympic final, running 20.1 and 20.0. And he was not included in the 4x1 pool. And the team did not make it to the finals, and none of those athletes were in the finals of a sprint event. So the comment that you said, that Warren Weir made, numerous times we have gone to the World Relays, and Rashid Dwyer would have showed tremendous form, ran the heats, and did not run in the finals. Listen, I have worked with the greatest of them all, the greatest team that would have seen in the history of Jamaica, because I've been around the block. Usain Bolt, Nestor Carter, Michael Frater, Ewan Blake, and others. I was that person who would run a half a mile to TIC to make sure that everything was okay. These gentlemen were 100% respectful. As a matter of fact, Michael Frater is in the camp. We still have a relationship today. There's no way in which I would disenfranchise anyone. And if there was a situation with Warren Weir, I am not aware of. Because personally, I felt that a lot of times, because I was a coach on the team, my athletes would have been disenfranchised. And it doesn't mean that because I coach and I'm a team leader, that they must not be included if they deserve to be there. Every single athlete that is here would have earned their way. Here, there's a selection committee that is chaired by a selection chairman, and they would have earned their way. In 2019, I was a head coach, and Taekwondo anchored the 4x1 relay team. We came fifth in the heats. So I am not sure of how I could have anything against a young man, Tyquendo Tracey. And we're at a point where I can recall that a couple years ago, one of my assistant coaches carried him to me and asked me to coach him. I told him at that time that it would not be possible. And I had my reasons, because I can recall that the young man would have left, Tyquendo Tracey, would have left MVP and made all sorts of remarks about his former coach, Stephen Francis. He then went to America, came back, and that was the time I was asked to coach him. I decided that I did not think I could mesh with that sort of personality. But we had no issue, have never had any issues. So I am not sure why this is happening, these unwarranted attacks. And it is, in my mind, as I said earlier, defamatory and has to be dealt with. I was called by him for a meeting. I convened the meeting, and he attacked me by saying that I was biased and I continued to put persons on the team and so on. I indicated to him that we should have the discussion in a meeting room. I invited him to the meeting room with the coach who was in charge of the relays. There was one other coach that was there, and we started to have a conversation. And he proceeded again to attack me, telling me how biased I was. And I said to him, I cannot have this conversation. I will have to remove myself. He has mentioned about athletes that were added to the team. My recollection is that the team list that was published initially, there were 5 other athletes that were added to the team, inclusive of Golson. The selection committee has that right, depending on what is happening at the time, to add those athletes. The other aspect of it had to do with Taekwondo suggesting that Golson was chosen over him. We have a setup in relation to the relays. As a matter of fact, I have been looking at other models, and I decided that where we are now, we had to transition in terms of how we were going to deal with those things. As a technical leader, a lot of my work is administrative. I have to go to the TIC room, look at protests, look at videos, make sure that athletes are in the call room. So from a technical perspective, the coaches handles what happens on the ground. The coaches that we have here are fully competent, some of the most experienced coaches in the world. The coach that was in charge of that team, if persons know that gentleman, no one can tell him what to do. What happened was 2 of the athletes who were in the top 3 did not, they came to the village and they were not at the camp. So the coach was not able to execute the baton passes. So what he decided to do was to work with those who were available at the time. Now, I was informed that Golson was being considered to run on the straight. And so we're going to speak to the Golson part specifically. Now, if we were to look at the times, of the top 5 times, Tracey would have run 10.09, Golson 9.94. Tracey 10.20, Golson 9.96. Tracey 10.21, Golson 10.04. Tracey 10.26, Golson 10.08. Tracey 10.27, and Golson 10.11 seconds. Prior to coming to this meet, the last meet that Tyquendo Tracey ran, the second to last meet, he ran 23.09. At that point, we thought that he was injured. He went to Memphis. I was there. he ran 20.94 seconds and 10.20 seconds. During that period of time, Golson went to the World University Games and ran 10.04, and in 2 hours 10.04 again, and became the World University champion. So, if a coach has those statistics, tell me, what do you think the coach would do? But separate and apart from that, Taekwondo is not entitled to run on the relay. The 3 persons who are included in the pool are 1, 2, 3 at the trials. The coaches have the liberty to decide who are the other 3 athletes. As a matter of fact, we have pulled hurdlers to run on the relay team when we were short in former days.
Long jumpers too.
Long jumpers. And so the coach who was in charge of the team made the decision that Golson was the next person he was going to look at. No final decision was made. I mentioned earlier of a system that I have put in place in relation to the relays. Now, after the coach makes the recommendation, he comes to myself and 2 other elite coaches with experience to ask, why is this person running? Why is this person not running? That took place yesterday afternoon. That was finalized in terms of all relays yesterday afternoon. And just to add, that Michael Campbell was also in that pool. And over the years, we have carried 7 or 8 athletes for the relay, because we had 8 athletes for the 4x400 meter. Because we have seen many times when we have come with 6 and we have had issues. And I just want to add that Cajun Golson was added to the team similarly to 4 other athletes.
So, what is the status of Tyquendo Tracey as we speak now? He is still in the 6, the pool, or what?
Well, as far as I know, no, because I have not seen him at the track. As I said, I do not have the operations of how the 4x1 works. They train at different times, but he's not in the 6 that is submitted. We know Shine someone from high school. She was available for selection, but she came in late. She came in when we entered the village, and there were issues about her fitness that we could not speak to. And recently, maybe just 2 days ago, there was a time trial. We had a time trial. So when she came in the village, we had the time trial. If she had come to the camp, we would have known exactly what shape she was in. So we were on bare bones in relation to the mixed relay. And just to add, again, the team was brought to my attention at a particular time. We were not able to have a sit down on that particular team, but I supported the decision that was made at the time based on what was in front of me.
Is it that the athletes were asked if they were available to participate, and not only would have indicated that she was available?
No. You mean the
mixed relay?
All right. So no, I am not aware of any of the athletes who would have run the 400 meter being asked. It has not been a practice. Mm-hmm. I think you almost compromise a situation when you ask that question, knowing that they have their individual event. Natalia Gould, coach, was asked from Jamaica because we had a shortage of 400 meter quarter milers at the time.
No, the thing is, she was never in the pool to start with.
No, you're referring what you saw on the entry? That's what you're referring to?
Was she in the pool with the list that we released to
right.
World Athletics? The relay pool was Natalia Gould a part of the mixed relay or the...
I'm not 100% sure, but I think she was a part of the mixed relay pool, because I can remember that there was conversation with their coach from in Jamaica because of what was in front of us. No one knew the fitness of Shine Salmon at the time, and there was one other person. I think it was Joanna Reed.
Joanna Reed, yes.
Right.
She was, yes.
Right,
I saw
right.
her name.
For the 4x4, I will ask Dennis to send that out tomorrow. For the 4x4, men and women, as early as possible. Mr. God.
Yeah, and again, the reason why it's strategic, because we delayed naming it, because the coaches believe that they don't want to give the United States an understanding of our four so they can do their own strategy. So we delay naming the 4x1s until now, and we're just going to ask a patient to do the 4x4s tomorrow, strategically for that reason.
Two of the athletes who were supposed to run did not turn up at the camp. And so we did not know what shape they were in. As a matter of fact, we heard that they were injured. And so we reached out, and I'm referring to the management, from Jamaica to Natalia Gould's coach to include her in the pool. And we're very happy that Coach Elliott relented because she had her individual event, which was the 800. So we're on bare bones. As a matter of fact, we wanted to add another quarter miler to the mixed medley, and we're not able to do so because none were available. So we could have still added more persons to the team. And just to add, no coach can add any individual to a team unless it goes through the selection chair.
One of the things is that in terms of for the relay teams, obviously the technical lead-up has to sign off on all decisions. It's the fact that in terms of that, you've put the complete trust in whether it's Lennox Graham to pick the 4 team, to pick the 4x1, or whether Bert the 4x4. But you still have, can you do at times override those decisions depending on situations or anything else?
Not at these championships. So Lennox Graham, well, an example. He deals with the team. He's an assigned coach to the team. He makes his recommendation. It comes to myself and one other person, and then we make a decision. We ask the questions. Why is this person running? If there's an opposition to a particular person, the facts would have to be represented. As I stated earlier, if it was a situation in which is being bandied about, Golson and Tyquendo Tracey, the numbers are clear. Of five best times by each athlete, Tracey would have run 10.09 as his best time, and Golson 9.94. Tracey 10.20, Golson 9.96. Tracey 10.21, Golson 10.04 seconds. Tracey 10.26, Golson 10.08. Tracey 10.27, Golson 10.11. No one is entitled, if you're not in the top 3, to run on the relay. It is left to the discretion of the coaches to make that decision. That is the rule.